During the strike of 1987, NFL players were seeking free agency. The NBA pays its players the highest average salary. The NFL is most unequal in player salaries, but most equal in revenue sharing. The NFL was the first to get free agency and the last to use it. Final offer arbitration is used in the MLB. The NHL lost an entire season due to a lockout. R squared measures the amount of variation in Y, which is explained by the X's. The p-value statistic indicates the coefficient is not zero. When the p-value is 0.99, the coefficient is likely zero. OLS produces blue only if the model does not have multiculinarity. This is just another way of saying that none of the X's are closely related. OLS finds the line of best fit between two variables by reducing the sum of squared distances from the observation. In the NFL, reported total contracts are not fully guaranteed. In the NBA, there is a shortage of the very best players due to a max player salary price ceiling. A threat point is the alternative option unions and employers have over striking a deal during collective bargaining. Statistical discrimination is not likely to be reduced due to economic competition. Tennis pays female athletes the most. Testosterone level is a trait that IOC uses to determine an athlete's ability to compete against women. Probability analysis with expected value technique helps you make decisions given uncertain outcomes of chance events with outcomes of varying values. Regression analysis helps us to understand the relationship between multiple variables to predict the value of a variable. Adjusted R squared indicates the amount of variation in the dependent variable that is explained by the independent variable. Ordinary least squares finds the line of best fit between two variables by reducing the sum of squares error. What does it mean to say that the model must be correctly specified? It means that the independent variables explain variation in a dependent variable which cannot be left out of the model. And number two, independent variables that do not explain variation in the dependent variable cannot be included in the model. Variable inflation factor and correlation matrix test for multiculinarity. If the probability of B occurring, given that A has already occurred, is equal to the probability of B occurring, what do we know about A and B? They are both independent. The expected value of a decision is equal to the sum of probabilities of the events multiplied by each event's value should it occur. The substitution effect dominates when the labor supply curve slopes upward. Marginal revenue product forms the basis for the labor demand curve. The emergence of rival leagues, increased sport popularity, and league expansion would contribute increasing player salaries in the free market. Roger Federer is the highest paid athlete. According to economic theory, the employer is most likely to pay for specific training, whereas an employee is most likely to pay for general training. The reserve clause granted teams monopsony power over athletes. An industrial union collectively bargains with employers. A craft union limits access to the skill and the union. A strike is when employees stop working. A lockout is when employers stop the working. The NBA was the first league to agree to a salary cap. Uncertainty is how economists reconcile work stoppages with rational behavior, since it is seemingly harmful to both parties. The Title X Amendment of the 1964 Civil Rights Act mandates equal participation for men and women in collegiate sports. An industrial union collectively bargains with employers. The NBA was the first league to agree to a salary. Final offer arbitration is practiced in the MLB. One explanatory variable equals simple regression analysis. SST equals SSE plus SSR. The goal is to minimize SSE. How does Y move when X moves by 1 unit? Answer: coefficient B's. You want a higher T statistic and a lower P value. Adjusted R2 is when R squared is adjusted 4 degrees of freedom. F statistic determines goodness of fit. The best unbiased linear estimates occur if the model is correctly specified and there is no multiculinarity. What was the reaction to scabs? Some fans returned tickets others supported them, and regular players protested. Washington found their replacement players in halfway houses, old pros, random workers, Canada, and jail. The Dallas GM got players to cross the picket line by threatening player annuities. The strike ended when owners broke up the union and threatened financial security. Post-strike, some players got to be part of the team, but some were let go.